All right, let's just start.
Let's do it.
All right. Hey guys, welcome back to the Drop Bass Not Bombs podcast. I'm here today with Canadian DJ and producer AnneX. Hey!
Hi.
So today's a really special episode. This is the first time I've ever done an interview for the podcast in person. So I'm not on the other side of my laptop. I'm sitting here. You're right in front of me.
So weird.
It's been very weird. Very weird. Yeah, it's been crazy since the start. Every single episode has been on Zoom. So it's great to have a human person here next to me to have a real conversation. So let's start off. Can you tell us a little bit who you are, where you're from, what do you do, what's your story?
Yeah, so my actual name is Anne Rainville. I'm from Canada, like you said. I ended up in the Netherlands in 2014. I went to Germany first. I did my PhD. And then I met a Dutch guy, so I moved here, to start working and like building up my life again. And when I moved to the Netherlands, I heard hardcore for the first time. Actually, first hardstyle and then hardcore, and then I really fell in love with it. Started making it. It kind of grew from there, and I really like understanding how things work. So I think I take a little different approach than other people do sometimes. So I think it's nice that I can really talk to other producers and learn from them and So that's part of what I do is me as a producer, and then I also DJ, and we share a passion for the hard dance scene, so that's how we met.
It's the best.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to take it back. We're going to get into all of that. But first I want to know, how did you go from Canada to deciding to study in Germany, and what did you study?
So I wanted to do my PhD in Germany with a particular professor. And I studied standards and innovation, also related to like climate change, innovation things. So I moved there because there was funding for the particular professor, and it was a good research group, and it had like a lot of, really motivated and also cool colleagues, which is really important. So if you commit like multiple years of your life to something, you have to know like, are you going to have a good time or not?
Yeah.
Because you know like at some point it's going to be pretty awful, so you should have like a good support system and a good supervisor. So that's why I did it in Germany, and also because German is really heavy on the standards and standardization aspects. That's also what I'm interested in producing, because it has a lot to do with standards and innovation, so it's kind of a really good fit. So I went there because I had funding too. I had a 2-year contract, so I did it in 2 years, which I didn't meet anyone else who did that, a PhD in 2 years.
What was that like doing? I think PhDs are like 6 years, right? Or like, how did you do that in 2 years? What was that like?
So in North America, it's like 6 years because you do some coursework. In Europe, you like do, you kind of work for the university, you're employed for them. So I really just did like research. I did do a couple courses too, and some extra stuff funded by the European Commission. I don't know how I did it. I think I was just in like survival mode. And I think I was pretty depressed for a large period of it, but like every PhD student is depressed, so you're like, well, okay, it's normal.
Sounds horrible. It sounds
it
a
was
lot
pretty
of
horrible.
work. I went to law school and it sucked. So I think PhD is even worse. So, I mean, you have an incredible story. This seems like a long road. So what kind of music were you listening to during that time, during your PhD?
Yeah, that's a good question. Because I started getting into hardstyle. Okay, so I went to EDC in 2014. It was on my bucket list. In June of 2014, I wanted to do a half marathon. I wanted to go to a rave. So I went down to EDC. I hurt myself. I did a half marathon before that, and I got a running injury, so I couldn't do that. But luckily, I could still go to EDC. So
the important things.
Yeah, exactly. So I saw Headhunters there, and I was like, oh my god, what is this amazing sound? And so then when I went to Germany, I just kept listening to like, I think the Prophet had a podcast, or he had like some ongoing thing, so I listened to his, and I listened to other producers series. I think Kutsky a lot, so like the more like gateway entry kind of softer stuff. And then when I started going to parties, I found like the passion is so cool, and just like the energy, and just a lot of adrenaline. I really love adrenaline.
Same.
Like safe, controlled adrenaline.
Same, me too.
And organized.
Organized chaos, organized adrenaline.
Exactly.
Same.
I thrive in that. So, that's how I got into the music and partying. And then I really got into running, and I started listening to Frenchcore for the running, because it's like 200 beats per minute, and the good cadence for running, the optimal cadence, is 200 steps per minute. So I could just like time my trainings with a beat of the music.
So was the first rave that you ever went to EDC?
Yeah.
I've heard this story a few times from people that was their first rave. Was that overwhelming? Most people start with smaller. For me, it was like a small club the first time I really heard electronic music live. It was Steve Angelo, from Swedish House Mafia. Very much big room house, very much club vibes. I can't imagine my first rave, especially in my youth, being showing up at EDC where you have so much adrenaline and stages and... What was that? How was that being the first rave? Did it automatically draw you in, or were you like, let me see, test the waters?
Yeah, I mean, it was really, it was really like attractive when I was there. I was like, oh, this is cool. But I was going through so many things in my life anyway that it was like, like so many major changes and major like amazing, but also breakups and stuff. That it was kind of like, cool, like,
And then, okay, so it was like kind of a slow start. And then, like you said, you got into it through running because that made you run really fast. So what was your first Dutch event like?
So it was Mysteryland in 2016. Yeah, it was so cool. I was like dancing at noon and I got on some like one of those promotional videos and now I'm like, shit, I don't think I should be doing that again. Because I'm there like on the front. No, so now I'm like in the back with like sunglasses and a hoodie. Like
I used to always want to be in the video and be so happy, and then now I watch the videos back and I like regret it every time. I'm like,
it's great though, and if other people see you, they're like, yeah, you're on the video, and you're like, oh my god.
Embarrassing.
Yeah, but no, it was an amazing event, and because maybe if people don't know, Mysteryland, well, it had different stages now, but before it had the like EDM stage and then the other one. So then I had the choice to like kind of, if it was too much, I could go to the other one, but I never did.
Okay, yeah. I thought Mysteryland had a lot of stages.
It could be. I only stayed at the one.
Okay, so you're just... Okay, so you're at Mysteryland. You fall in love with the music. Was it the Prophet, or was there one DJ that really pulled you in that you saw that weekend, or just the whole Mysteryland experience?
It was like something like cheesy, like Wasted Penguins or something.
Oh, that's fun!
It's like the easy start stuff because that was really my first experience, like first set of the day, like first festival. Yeah, and the people who were there were like super like into it. I also think some of them were like just kept partying from the night before.
Yeah, you said it was noon, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, those are the people that have been awake for a long time.
Yeah, the normal people are sleeping.
Yeah. Those are the diehards. Yeah. Okay, so you're partying with them and you were like, this is where I belong.
Yeah.
Cool. So how did you go from being a fan then to being a producer and a DJ?
Yeah, so I was really like, I wanted to understand more about what I was hearing. Because like even like picking up particular instruments, like you hear a song and the point is that it's cohesive, but then to pick it apart and really say like, hey, what I like about this, what kind of music I prefer that has like different elements, you need to understand actually what's kind of going on. And I had absolutely no idea how to do that. So I saw this like, the Dr. Peacock Anchorfist Masterclass, and I joined, and then I was like, oh, that's cool. And then before then I was just like reading. Yeah, I ordered like a bunch of books and read them. But it didn't really help so much because like the terminology is so different to what you use every day. Like there's actual like really specific words. Because like the science-based stuff I could understand, and like the graphs and the math, like that's fine. But it was more like how it all fit together because it's really a new language and like connected to music and connected to the like DAW, the audio workstation. That was different for me, so...
It sounds like you took a really academic approach. Spoiler alert, I'm not a DJ or producer. I did DJ a little bit in college as DJ Jungle Jim. It was a short phase in my life, but it sounds like you took a really academic approach to learning how to produce and DJ. Do you think this is common, or was it like, or is everyone going with books and tutorials, or?
Yeah, so I thought it was common. And I mean, you always think like you project what's inside your mind onto everybody else. And so you think your own reality is the same as somebody else's. Where, I mean, it could be completely opposite, but you just think it is. I forget what the word is. It's some psychological term. But yeah, because then I was talking to my friends who would produce, and then I was asking them all these like detailed, complicated stuff, and they're like, what? So I'm like, shouldn't you know this? Like, how don't you know? Or how do you know, like, how to give me the answer to this question that I have? But yeah, I guess I was going like way too detailed, and I think a lot of people start by just like turning knobs on stuff or just like practicing and doing trial and error. Which is a great way to learn and to like stay curious, because then if you can get some like output that sounds okay more quickly, whereas the academic approach like, just go on forever, and like if you actually produce something at the end, like good, but like the chances are you do are kind of low. But yeah, that's a trade-off. So I really wanted to understand it a lot more deeply.
It sounds like that's a common theme for you, is like you just want to know everything about something. Like you're not just like dabbling here and there. You want to dive deep. Like you said, like you went to Germany, you took these classes, like you want to experience everything about something. It's not just like, you don't seem like someone that takes like an ambivalent approach. You seem like someone who's all in.
I can't let it go, right?
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
the problem. Well, I recently bought a house, and the makelar, so like the agent, who was going over the details, she's like, "You want to control everything, don't you?" And I was like, "Wow, that's quite insightful."
She said that?
Yeah, she
Dutch
said
people,
that.
so direct.
I think she didn't want to do her job, but yeah. Yeah.
That's
anyway,
I'm
so
like that as well. So that's why I asked. I can relate. I also do everything like 110%. I either do it all the way or I don't do it at all.
Well, you're really detail oriented.
Yeah, it's a
So-
blessing and a curse.
Yeah, exactly. It's kind of like who you are.
Yeah.
So I think for me.
Then maybe that's also why we're such good friends. Well, we have that in common. So what was the first step that you took to learn how to produce? Was it taking out some books from the library, like Googling, like going through back down library? Like, can you walk me a bit through the process of like, what is the very first thing that you did?
Yeah, I was Googling like resources. Okay, I've been on Reddit for like 10 years, which I don't know if it's a cool thing to admit, but I really like Reddit, because it's anonymous. So you can be like anybody, and people always assume you're like some 18-year-old like guy in his basement, which is, I think, kind of the case often. But yeah, so like you always, like everybody has kind of an equal voice there. So I was on all these procurement forums, and yeah, depending on the forum, like the subreddit, like it can differ, but not procurements. Did I say procurement?
You did.
Oh no, this is what I work on in my
yeah,
other,
I was like, what does that mean? Yeah.
Procurement is when you buy products or services. That's what I do in my academic life. I meant producer, the other P word. So there's producer subreddits where everyone is really quite respectful. So yeah, I started asking questions on those, but there's a lot of there's more new people than people who have experience. So I really wanted to go like, okay, I want like a resource that's going to tell me everything. So I found like the top rated kind of production books. And it's funny how they differ, because one of them is written by a guy who has like 30 years of experience in the music industry. And it's so easy to read, like he has some like grammatic faults like once in a while.
It's just proofreading it.
I'm like, if I were writing this.
Yeah.
But yeah, like he has really good examples and really practical stuff. And then I got another book. There's this like guy who has a PhD, and he's so condescending. He's such a prick. And he's like, yeah, you have those really cheap ass speakers, spend all your money on speakers. And it's like, no, that's not what you want to hear when you start. Like, so I have both books, and I really prefer the one that's like, the guy's really like taking your hand and walking you through it, versus the other one who's telling you like, yeah, what the fuck, like spend more money, like dumbass, like learn more. Like, yeah, so I actually didn't finish reading that book.
Just to toss it aside.
Yeah. But it was a really good start into like the main terminology and like, how you can approach a song and a little bit about the music industry.
So for producers out there, how did you decide what software to use? Again, I'm not a producer, but you hear around Ableton and these things throwing around. How do you, so let's say I'm an aspiring producer. Who knows, maybe 2022, that's what I'm going to do.
Maybe I inspire you.
Oh my God, I can't imagine taking on any more things in my life, but let's say I wanted to get started today. I mean, I could go to Reddit, etc. But what would you recommend? Like, what kind of software do you use? What kind of equipment does one buy? What do you do to like actually get started?
Yeah, so I got started with Ableton. So I want to start producing in like 2014, actually. So between my undergrad and my master's, I think. Yeah, or 2012. Anyway, but then I started my master's and I had like absolutely no time. So by then, like Ableton's been basically the same for like 20 years, I think. So even then, like Ableton was kind of the best one. I mean, it seemed like it's also kind of the most complicated one in a way, but like I wanted to start high, like, so like if I could get that, then I could kind of get any one of the DAWs, and it seems a little more sophisticated. So that's what attracted me to it, and that you can play live with it, and has different orientations. It's not necessarily the best one to start with. So there's two types of views. There's arrangement view, which is going over time, like how you would see music arranged in like sheets, and there's a session view, which is like that but like inverted, and there's no time. So the session view can be quite confusing for people. And I think like in general there's not a lot of good guidance on it, but the other type of view is the same for like all the DAWs. So really,
and what's a DAW for people?
Oh yeah,
that don't?
the digital audio workstation.
Digital audio workstation. Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean the functionality partly is the same across all the DAWs, but Ableton you had a bit more and a bit extra, and you can also get like higher levels. Like you can get a free version for like 90 days. You can get Ableton Lights, which gives you like 6 tracks, I think. I have Max, and then you can get like Max Pro if you're like an audio engineer, and then you can actually like map out all your devices like on a grid. It's kind of cool. So maybe that's my next step, but you can always keep going up with Ableton.
Okay, so it's just constantly evolving.
Yeah, and also still exactly the same. Like it's funny.
What does that mean? Wait, what?
The interface is the exact same. Like if you see pictures from 2000, it looks like identical, just kind of a different shade of color, like a more attractive, like 2020 color.
Okay.
Oh yeah, you also have like cool ways to add colors.
Okay,
so
that's
I
cool.
color coordinate everything.
So what colors do you choose?
Yeah, it depends on so within a song you have different tracks, and the tracks are the layers of like instruments and other songs that you add together to make one cohesive song. So for the kick I make it red because red is like a passionate thing.
Ooh.
And for the melody it's more like a blue because it like flows a little better. Percussion is yellow, like an exciting kind of, yeah. So I have a scheme myself.
Nice.
Maybe it's a bit geeky, but it helps with your own workflow to like do the same thing over and over.
I think that's good advice for people. Maybe that would help them get started for sure.
Yeah, I think so.
So in this journey, what's the most important aspect of producing for you?
Yeah, so I always want to do better, and I always kind of want to not be the best. Well, I mean, yeah, I like competition and I like to win.
You are the best.
Thanks. You heard it here.
Yeah, the best.
Yeah, but for like producing just takes so long, or it can take so long, especially if you want to understand like the mechanisms by which the sounds are being made. So for that you need a lot of patience and you need a lot of like humility. So you need to like be humble and be like, okay, this is really gonna take like a long ass time. I don't know if I can swear.
You can swear. You've said a lot of swearing already. Keep
3.
swearing.
I'm gonna swear with 3.
Oh, you
right
can say whatever you want.
I was like, when is she gonna stop
too late.
me?
It's too late. No, you're allowed to swear. Go for it. Say whatever you want.
Yeah. So yeah, it really like production takes a lot of time, and you have to enjoy the process itself. And it's kind of like for any hobby, like if you don't enjoy the process, it's not going to be like a sustainable feature of your life. And for producers who get really good, like it takes them a long time. And you don't see the work behind the scenes. You only see someone like on the stage, like whatever, like having the time of their lives. But there's so many failures that go on behind that. So you need to like realize when you start, like everybody's bad when they first started something. And the most successful people have failed the most out of anybody because they've tried the most things.
So what year was let's talk timeline. When was the first track that you made? What year was that?
Define a track.
Whoa, can you talk about, so you were just saying that like the first things are always really bad. Would you say now that looking back at your music now, where you are now, are you like, ooh, or are you like, no, this is where I've grown from?
I think a little both. And I mean, you always like, for me, things that I've done before, produced before, I look back in hindsight with like a couple of years after, and then I'm like, oh, I'm actually kind of proud of myself that I could do it then. Because when you're really so deep into it, you only hear your mistakes and you only hear the problems. And a lot of times, like, no one else will hear those problems. But you can get so fixated on it. But like overall, you could have like a really good, like some sort of elements of your song could be really good. You could have a really like good melody, or you can have a solid bass line, or you could have some sort of like coherence between different sections, or you could have good arrangements. So there can be a lot of good stuff going on within like the little things that you're doing. But like, finishing a track in itself is a whole other like art form. So I really needed help for that. But that's what other producers helped me to like push me through too.
And now you're helping other producers.
Yeah, apparently.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I talk and people listen.
So how did you make this jump then from like amateur producing to now doing tutorials and teaching? What was the final piece of that puzzle for you?
Yeah, so I had at my old work I had a burnout, so I was like off work for really like a large number of months. So for then I just focused on like playing the piano and producing and taking the piano into producing. And I was on the Reddit subreddits a lot, so people would ask things, especially about like the Ableton, like how the session view works or how it works with the hardware, like with the push.
Let's get technical for people.
Okay.
What is the push?
The push is something that you push.
So it's a soundboard with buttons, correct?
Exactly.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, so it's a
and they light
hardware
up.
that you set up, and it maps out to your DAW, to your Ableton, and it's integrated with it, which means what you press on the push with your finger, well, the button will be pushed digitally on your DAW. So it's like you're going through with your mouse and clicking things, but you're doing it with your finger instead.
Okay, that makes sense. So you have it hooked up, you're pressing it, and then it's appearing on the screen.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
do different buttons make different sounds? Very let's take it
exactly
step by step. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, it's kind of like, it's just like an instrument you would play, like how a piano, if you press the key, like your like mechanical energy goes to like another like 5 little mechanical energy steps, and then if it's an electric piano, that'll trigger something converted to like digital electricity or energy, and then it goes into your computer and then it picks it up. So it's kind of like the same series of steps, just with this a hardware device.
So when did you learn to play the piano? Do you have a background in classical music?
Yeah, when I was like little, I played it for years, but I didn't practice and I didn't really like it. Yeah.
But now you like it because
like
you
it.
found it in your own way.
Yeah, exactly. I just do what I want, and I can like develop my own musical style.
What is your musical style? How would you define the music that you produce?
Yeah. Well, with like, because we're speaking particularly about the piano, I like doing like arpeggios, so I figured out how chords work, and I have a tutorial on that I finally put together. I don't know if it makes it easier or harder for people if they watch the tutorial.
Hopefully easier.
You'll find out for yourself when you watch it.
We'll link to that in the show notes.
Yeah, so I mean, I always use like 3 or 4 chords, like chord progressions, according to the key I want to use. Like I use different keys, of course. And then the chords usually have 3 notes in them, like a low, middle, and a high, or like 1, 3, 5 if you're playing the piano with these fingers. And then I like to arpeggiate. So instead of playing them at the same time, you do like da-na-na-na, da-na-na. So I go like arpeggiate up and down, and then I just do that for each of the chords. And so it sounds fancy, but it's really just like
really fancy.
The same thing over and over. And as long as you can keep the melody separate, then your left hand is just always doing the same thing. But it really adds a lot of like emotion and fullness to the songs, and that's why I think it sounds good in the production. And then I can find people to collaborate with who are really good in like timing, like Lab-E, or like arrangement, like Horror is really good in that, and also really good about like getting stuff done like really efficiently. So yeah, I found people that I can partner with, and then we find like nice complementarities.
That's awesome. I think collaborations are so important.
Yeah, really.
Sure.
Yeah.
And it's all about who you know, and so you've mentioned Lab-E, Hyrule War. Is there anyone else that like has had an impact so far in your career, or you've collabed with, or maybe someone you want to collab with?
I have, I mean, there's a couple other people that I'm collaborating with now. Some on the back burner. I mean, the intention is there for sure. But that's the first step, right? Like getting out and like reaching somebody and being in touch and being like, this is what I find interesting about your music. This is the kind of music that I do. And then you kind of set everything up. So like networking and collaborations happen over a long period of time. So it's good to just,
so it's not just like, let's make a track.
Exactly. And you hear other people say, this guy who like doesn't even follow me is like saying, hey, collab bro in my DMs. And it's like, you've never engaged with me. Like, I don't know who you are. Like, nobody knows who you are. Like, no offense. But then you can't bring yourself and be like, hey, work with me. Like, you really have to like build it up like with a human element. Because everyone's just a person, right? So...
Do you find that that's been harder lately because of the pandemic, to that human element, or like collaborating in person, or has it not really mattered because a lot of it is remote?
Yeah, I mean, I haven't. A lot of the people I have been working with over the last few months, I never met them in person. I really don't mind. Like, I actually started doing better with things when I could record like a video and do it on video. So actually when I started to do the tutorials, because I did them like recording when I was speaking, like just speaking to myself basically, I was like, I really like teaching, maybe I should be a teacher. And so I became an assistant professor. So I mean, I really like it for myself because it builds a lot of confidence up, because I do like I used to be awful at speaking and like not look people in the eye. Really, I really had to work on it.
Oh really? That's really shocking to me. You seem like you're a really natural speaker.
I had like no self-confidence.
So, well, you're awesome now.
Like,
you're doing good.
So like if you can see yourself and be like, I'm actually speaking, like I sound quite eloquent. I hope I sound eloquent when I speak.
Oh yeah.
And you're like, I actually have something to say. So yeah, I think like virtually, like the pandemic kind of gives people a platform to do that. But yeah, some other personality types could just maybe like shut off. Like if you feed off the energy of other people. I don't know if I do so much, but yeah.
I've seen that with artists during the pandemic, and I've spoken about it previously on the podcast, that we kind of saw two shifts. Some that really thrived during the pandemic, they took advantage of live streams or tutorials or starting podcasts, doing different things like that, writing books, you know, things like that. And then others who didn't seem to do anything, kind of just disappeared, because they didn't see that there was a point in producing music. If you can't put out a festival banger, then what are you going to do? So I think that's a question I ask a lot of like DJs and producers on this podcast, is how they handled the pandemic and what they did, because I think it really says a lot about them. And it seems like for you, you took advantage of it, but also you're a professor, your background in teaching. So do you think that lends itself to the tutorials that is kind of natural to you to teach?
Yeah, well, actually, like before I did the assistant professor thing, I didn't have much teaching experience. Like I did it like some tutoring, like math tutoring stuff.
Can you tutor me? I suck at math.
Do you need help? Are you
horrible at math?
Are you asking me to do your taxes? Is this like
oh no, oh that's right. I got that done.
Oh wait, it's ballasting.
I got the ballasting dean stuff done, but maybe next year.
Yeah,
okay. Yeah, please. Oh, that's cool. Yeah, I'm always impressed when people are good at math. Sorry, I mean to interrupt you, but
I
I'm
think math
horrible.
is really beautiful.
I hate it. Okay, one thing we don't have in common, I'm so bad at it. So you were tutoring, and then you built up to being a professor.
Yeah.
Or not like that.
Yeah, well, yeah, based over a series of years.
Next day.
Yeah. Well, it's really rewarding, like with these tutorials I was recording for people, because with like writing it out like on Reddit, like you can only describe so much in words. And I was like, yeah, I have like Streamlabs already set up, so I might as well just like record my screen, and then they can see exactly what I'm doing. And then it's really rewarding when someone's like, yeah, you really helped me a lot. I'm like, oh, wow, cool. Yeah, because you like, I usually wouldn't think like I can, because I always used to think like everything I know, everybody else knows, and then they know more than that. But that's not the case.
Not true at all.
That's not true.
It's like not true at all.
Yeah. And this is for everyone out there. Like, you're always going to be the expert on something, like more than another person. So it doesn't mean like be cocky, but like be confident in what you know and what you're doing and what you're passionate about.
Definitely. I think that's really good advice, for sure. So I want to talk a little bit about the genres. So how would you describe the genre of music that you produce?
Yeah, so I'm doing like, for the songs, I've been doing Frenchcore, but for the radio sets, and we'll talk about that a bit later too, I've been doing more like hardcore and kind of whatever the F I want.
Yeah, you can swear, it's okay, you can swear. People have said all sorts of things on this podcast, so, but for people who don't know, the other F word, what is Frenchcore? How would you just, in your own words, how would you describe Frenchcore?
Yeah, you have like really cool melodies and a lot of cover songs. And when you use a cover song, you already have like the emotional connection of a melody to the listener already. So it's kind of cheating in a way, but it also increases the likelihood that you have a song that sounds really good. And it's a good way to learn too, just to replicate the sounds of others. And for me, that's melodies. I like to pick out a melody and do it on the piano. And with Frenchcore, you can combine like, really melodic components and really like traditional instruments like violin and cello, string instruments, piano, like use all sorts of sample banks, and then use all this like, crazy shit like from like movies. You have sample banks just for movies, like cinematic production. So you can really do like everything. Yeah.
It sounds like there's a lot of places to draw inspiration from. Can you walk us through like the creative process of like, how do you get started? Are you just walking down the street, going to the Albert Heijn and you hear a violin in your head and then you make a track? Or like, can you walk us step by step? How do you go about making a track? What's the creative process look like for you?
Yeah, it depends. Like, so my previous creative process that I'm not sure it's working so well anymore. So I have this app called Tabs, and it's for guitar tabs, but it also gives you chords. So I was going through and learning how to play just like pop songs, whatever kind of songs that are famous that I like on the piano, because it'll tell you the words and it'll tell you the key for each of the times the chord progresses. So I was learning that, and then I would like learn the songs and then record them on my piano, and then use the melody for whatever melodic instruments or melody layers I want. And then the bass, I could do like the chords for like a pad. And use the chord progression for like the different kicks that you're gonna have over like the number of bars. So like I just took like yeah, basically first from the melody and the melodic components, and then broke it down into actually like, yeah, what are the building blocks of a song.
Does it take a long time? It sounds like it takes a long time.
It gets faster the more you do it. But yeah, that's why I want to adjust my process now, because I already kind of learned how to do it that way. And now I find like little blockages. So like I put it in, then I'm like, yeah, now what? Like I kind of wish I started it some other way. So for them, like for the radio shows I'm doing for Toxic Sickness, I'll force myself to listen to a lot more music. And then I'll be like, oh, that song's really cool. And then I'll add it to a playlist and I'll save it. And then all the songs I save, I have like according to a theme, like in different playlists. And then I get inspired to, yeah, have something that's more like put together. Because that's what's hard, like for production, because you're so focused on the details, sometimes you lose the wider picture. So that's what, yeah, the DJ sets help with. And they also help with figuring out, okay, what is my sound like overall? What do I want it to be? And in general, how does that reflect like who the image is of me as a producer? And
this really digs deep. It digs deep. So you've mentioned Frenchcore and hardcore. Are there any other genres that you've dabbled in or that you want to dabble in?
Yeah, a lot. Like, I mean, I really should be doing some other stuff, but like with the kicks with Frenchcore, I just kind of have it down now. But one of the biggest differences between that and other genres like terror, like it's the BPM, and then like, yeah, the kind of kicks and the kick progressions you have, and then that's basically it.
So what's your favorite then to produce?
Yeah, I haven't really made the other one. Okay, I did some industrial stuff that I produced, and people actually really like that too. Because I was really into like Marilyn Manson and all else like cheesy like goth rock stuff. And now like it still has meaning for me through my life. Like as I get older, I listen to it again. I'm like, oh, it's so cool. And when I learn to the elements of production, I understand music more that I love, and then it's just so much more beautiful to me, and it gives it so much more meaning. So now I can, yeah, take the songs that I liked before and use them now. And yeah, there's some other genres where it's more appropriate. Like I would love to do a terror song. Yeah, I was speaking to Digital Active and he's like, yeah, let's make a track. I'm like, yeah, great. And now we're like, okay, we're too busy. At some point we will do a track.
That'd be awesome. It's cool that you're experimenting in different genres. Yeah. And you know, I love terror, I love Frenchcore. So I think that's really cool.
I love the anger in like terror and stuff. And I think Frenchcore is like a little like fluffy in a way. So yeah, like there's some months where I'm just like, I'm like really angry and depressed, and I'll like, yeah, I think I have some mixes where it's just like hardcore, like super terrorcore terror. Like,
I have the same. So for me, terror is like I'm at the festival and I'm just letting it all go. It's kind of the equivalent to like the heavy bag boxing classes I've been doing. It's like I do a class. Shout out to Team Body Box in Vorburg. But it's a class that's 30 minutes of just beating the shit out of a bag. Yeah. And he plays like hardcore and hardstyle and just like beating the shit. Awesome. And it's 30 minutes. You're in, you're out. Beat the shit out of the bag, you let it all out, and like that's how I feel terror is. Yeah. I'm at the terror stage, especially for example like at Dominator or something like that at Harmony, and you're just letting all of, because I'm super happy, fun person, MC Unicorn, but I'm angry sometimes as
We're all angry sometimes. It's a valid emotion.
Valid emotion, and it's one that as women in society, not to like go too deep, but like that we suppress.
Yeah, you're not allowed to express it, right?
Especially like I think in Canada it's the same as in the US. It's just like you can't just be like screaming at people.
You have to be nice.
Yeah, you have to be nice, and I think especially in the 90s it was just about being nice. I was always told that I was very loud, to use my indoor voice, my library voice. I'd be like, this is my library voice. So I think for me, terror, it's letting out that inner anger, that rage, and that inner, this is my library voice. I have that inside me, and it's a nice outlet. And then on the other hand, I can go listen to the Vanga Boys or Aqua, or even now to Millennium or Cheat Codes, or more mainstream big room cheesy EDM, and that it really just it's my whole personality. There's a genre of music for every part of my personality.
Yeah, and it's good to realize like as people you're like you don't just have like one like part of like you have many parts to your personality, and there's many parts to you as a person as a whole. So you're allowed to like different music. Like the hardcore terror doesn't have to be your whole identity. You're allowed to like classical Beethoven music too. It doesn't make you like any less of a hardcore person. And yeah, it's good to acknowledge that. I went to a Speedcore. What you were saying made me think of the festival I went to in Berlin. Oh yeah, it would have been a couple of years now. A Speedcore event, and it was like 13 hours. And it was insane. And it was like this tiny room with like smoke and like 20 people in this room. and it was so crazy. And like I went out and I was like, I'm a new person.
Yeah,
Like,
Speedcore is something
I'm so born again.
And I love the people who go to Speedcore events. They're so funny and they're so nice. Everyone's just so kind. It's just like you would. Okay, so for people who don't know Speedcore, you're the producer. How would you describe it? It's just very fast.
I really like making Speedcore too. Actually, yeah, it's so much fun. You can't even mix it. Like I tried mixing it once. I'm like, okay, stop, play, because you can't overlap it because there's so much going on.
It's extremely high BPM. It can go up to like 1,000 BPM from what I've heard. And it's funny because you would think such aggressive, angry, crazy music wouldn't bring out such nice people. But I've met the nicest people at Speedcore events, and it's always like 20 people. And it's always in the middle of the day. Like I went to one Speedcore party also years ago now in Eindhoven, somewhere in Eindhoven. And it started at noon in the middle of the day. And it's just like 20 people in a room just like going at it.
And a lot of time it's like very sober, like respectable people, and you think it would be like these junkies, and you're like, no, this is like someone who I could like approach on the street and ask for directions. Like, you know, like a normal looking person, because sometimes you think like if the music is harder, then it's like people are strung out on drugs, and it's not the case.
Yeah, definitely not, and some really nice respectable people, and but it's just it is funny the juxtaposition between like Speedcore and the people. So yeah, bringing things back. Now you make me really nostalgic for live events, hopefully again soon. But I want to know a little bit about the tutorials. So can you walk me through that process? We talked a little bit about how you started them, but what does a normal tutorial look like for you? Why did you decide to start them?
Yeah, so I think I mentioned a little before, but I'll give you a lot more detail now. So I wanted to start them to make it a lot easier for me to explain to people who I was just like chatting with on different forums, mostly like subreddits on music production. I wanted to use it as an explanatory tool because it's a lot easier if you show it like visually. If you could type out something in like 500 sentences and then you show it in like 1 minute, it's a lot easier to do the minute, right? So I started doing those, and then I was sharing links with people, and then I really like the question like oriented approach. So I'm basically doing it for other people, and not to sound like a saint, but it's really rewarding for me that way. Sometimes I do it if I want to, like, because if you can teach something, you really have a good understanding of it. So if I'm like starting to understand or like research a new area of production, I'll be like, oh, I should make a tutorial on this, because if I have questions about it, probably somebody else does too. And when I'm learning something, I'll go to like YouTube too. And there's some really good music production tutorials there. But there's been a lot of cases where I don't find the thing that I want. Or else there's someone who goes like super quickly and I don't understand a word. Or there's like no words whatsoever and it's just a screen with a mouse clicking with no sound. So I try to bring in like all the different like pedagogic elements to teaching. But trying to help the people like learn actually what they want to learn, and then the level of depth that they can approach, and connect it also to what they know before.
So do you ever have people hit you up? Like you said, you do it for the people. So do you ever have people hit you up and be like, hey, Anne, DJ AnneX, I need a tutorial. Can you help me with this? And then would you make a tutorial about it? Or
yeah, exactly. And I keep asking people. And the one that was difficult that I haven't done yet, one was like, what's the theory of like sound waves behind like trick kicks? And I was like, oh,
what's a trick kick? What's a trick kick?
Yeah, that was my first question. So usually, and somebody might think that I'm wrong here, but if I am, then contact me. So you usually have like 4 kicks in a row, and then you have something, and then another 4 kicks in a row, and between that you can have a blip, like, or a reverse kick or something that's a variation on the normal kick you're using. And then so the question from him would be like, how much do you vary this kick? What sort of like synchrony do you think between like the wavelengths or whatever is happening? It was a really good question, you know, because like the questions that give more questions are good questions. And you're just like, shit, now I have to answer this sometime.
Wow. First of all, I had no idea about any of that because again, not a producer. Okay, so that's interesting. So did you end up making a tutorial about trick kicks?
Not yet.
Surprise kicks? Surprise kicks?
Not yet. I did do one on like the basics, like the fundamentals of like how you build up wavelengths for like the harmonic synthesis of like sound waves to make music. Because I was like, how is music made? You know?
Yeah, when I was checking out some of your tutorials, and it seems like you really take like a music theory approach. Do you find like that's different than other tutorials out there? And why did you decide to take that approach?
Yeah, so it's a good point because I was in like music class forever. I was a band geek.
Oh, you were?
Yeah.
Oh, that's cute.
And I also had to do a lot of music theory, like for piano. And it really makes me understand something, like if I can sit and study it and write it down. So I try to bring that too to as like a communicative tool to people. And I think I take for granted that other people don't have this theoretical background that I do. And yeah, if you're wanting to improve your production, one really good advice is to take up an instrument, because then you get the idea of how things sound. And it's
any instrument, or is there one in particular that you would recommend?
I mean, piano's the easiest. And then piano, you have the keys that are the same as you would use on like a MIDI keyboard. And yeah, that would be the best one. And then just get like a little, like, I don't know, 50 key keyboard and plug it in and you're good to go. That would be the easiest way.
I played the violin when I was young because in
difficult.
school, yeah, I was horrible. Back in the day, like we had to play an instrument. So in the 90s in the US, for some reason, everyone had to play the recorder.
Oh my God,
like play hot cross buns. Oh, you did also. Yeah. It was like for some reason we like all had to do that. Yeah. And then we had the choice of like we could do band, choir, orchestra, and like I don't know how I ended up in orchestra. I don't know how I ended up with the violin. Yeah, I'm just a classy bitch, you know.
Classy lady.
Classy lady, classy little Amy. I don't know why. What inspired me to choose the violin. I was not very good.
It's really difficult though to learn the violin.
It's horrible.
Because the piano you can just press a key and that's how it's supposed to sound. But violin, like, you cannot.
No, definitely not. And it was definitely not my thing. Although I do love music, it was definitely not for me. So I think that's really cool that you started from band with the piano and like that's really cool. It just seems music has played a really integral role in your whole life, you know. And then also with teaching as well.
Yeah, I really like, music always touched a part of me that I couldn't really put into words or express any other way. And I think that's what's beautiful if you make something that really resonates with someone like super deeply. And yeah, like think about the song and the favorite song you have at the moment. How does it make you feel? And then I think it's something really amazing to be able to adjust the way that you feel through music or connect the way that you feel into something external to yourself. And I think music kind of makes that bridge, and it makes you feel, not to sound too cheesy, but it makes you feel like less alone in the world, because then you actually resonate on some wavelength with something that's beyond yourself, but then it's still inside of you because you listen to it and consume it.
I love that. When you were speaking, I was really thinking about all the songs in my head of certain songs for certain moods, and they're in there, and like they really make you feel a certain way. And you're having a bad day, you put on a song, can totally change your mood. Or today I was handling a lot of administrative stuff, speaking of taxes, and I was first listening to a wellness podcast, and I was like, meh, okay, this is like not going so well. And then I put on like hard techno. So his name's Satura. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing it correctly. He's a German hard techno guy named Satura. Put that on and everything got done. Cleaned the house, did my, it's just like that. I needed the dun 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 dun, the repetitive, fast. I didn't need, a wellness podcast at the moment. Yeah. I needed something that was fast. And I feel like I was saying before too, there's genres of music that fit into every part of my life. And I feel like I've dabbled in every genre of electronic music. It's played a role in my party days in college. It was dubstep. And, now it's a bit of everything. But I feel like during the pandemic at home, I took a break from listening to hard dance because it made me really nostalgic and sad for not having parties. Yeah. So I really got into deep house music, this other genre called slap house, which I don't know is a genre.
Created for the pandemic.
Yeah, I suppose. It's slap house, progressive house, just a bit more. Do we freeze?
No. Keep going.
Okay, yeah, a bit more chiller music to fit the mood, because if I'm sitting at home all day working from home, if I'm playing Terror, my work is not going to get done. Maybe I will clean the whole house, or I'll run a half marathon or beat somebody up, but I'm not going to, be able to get my work done. Or so the type of music really does adapt to my mood, the vibe, and like what's going on in the moment. Did you feel that way during the pandemic? You were still producing Frenchcore and Terror. Did you feel that?
Well, now that you mention it, I definitely did not write my dissertation for my PhD listening to Terror. So yeah, I think it was more like, easy listening music. I think it could go both ways. Like You can listen to music to change your mood toward that music, or you could do it to reinforce the way you're feeling. And yeah, during the pandemic at the beginning, like I think, yeah, everybody was depressed too. And like you see that in the way that it changed the way music was produced. I think a lot of like existing producers made more music. So there's like this huge like influx of new music, but it was also a bit longer and not really oriented to the dance floor. So I really liked it because it felt a bit more in depth. And that's what I wanted to get like with my my live streams and stuff, to do like kind of a longer like Frenchcore idea, like not necessarily like a bunch of tracks just like cut and pasted between each other, but something that's more like, maybe it's like progressive Frenchcore. I should start a hashtag.
Oh my god, do it! Oh, progressive Frenchcore. There you go. Yeah.
Because I was thinking before, like, because there's the euphoric Frenchcore label now. I'm like, what's the opposite of euphoric? Like dysphoric Frenchcore. And I'm like, okay, I don't want people to think like this is the downer euphoric Frenchcore.
I mean, I might be interested in that as well. I don't know. Who knows? Sounds maybe nice.
I hashtagged it once and I was like the only one. So.
You gotta start somewhere. Progressive Frenchcore. Okay, that's cool. You heard it here first on the podcast, folks.
Right.
Yeah.